So Dan A. Turner actually had some statements about the sentencing, and he disagreed with the sentencing. Not that it was too short, or that it was too short, but that it was too long and that he shouldn't have been sentenced in the first place. So let me give you the details on what he wrote. He says, Brock always enjoyed certain types of food and is a very good cook himself. I was always excited to buy him a big ribeye steak to grill or to get his favorite snack for him. This is a steep price to pay for 20 minutes of action out of his 20-plus years of life. What I know as his father is that incarceration is not the appropriate punishment for Brock. He has no prior criminal history and has never been violent to anyone, including his actions on the night of January 17th, 2015.
So he did not do his son any favors there. Look, hard to judge a parent because what wouldn't you do to defend your kids, even if they're dead wrong, okay? So I get it. On the other hand, boy, did you use the wrong words there. If it was not your intent, and I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, maybe I shouldn't, that it was not your intent, don't say 20 minutes of action. Have somebody look at that and say, no, use different language. Don't use that language. I think I know what you meant, which is don't judge him for 20 minutes of his life when he's lived 20 years, right? But be careful in the words that you're choosing. Secondly, you say, no, there was no violence here. See, now I can't help but question your intent, because having sex with an unconscious woman is an act of violence. And if you don't understand that, and you think like, you seem to be saying, what's the big deal? She was passed out and he had sex with her. Well, that is a big deal. That's the rape and sexual assault that we're talking about here. She had no idea that this guy was doing. I mean, I don't want to get too graphic here.
No, you should get graphic, though, because I think the reality of the situation is important, right? And I'm very curious to see how Dan A. Turner would feel if a female family member of his was treated the same way as the victim, right? Would he think that it's rape? Would he want justice? He probably would.
Or if it was him, you know, look, we've talked about this in the past. There's actually more rape of men than there are women in this country. It's an amazing stat, largely almost because of exclusively because of prison rape, right? Not exclusively, but almost exclusively, right? And so now, if you said to Dan Turner, "Oh, could he have gotten drunk one night?" Right? A lot of us have gotten drunk, sometimes passed out, right? And if a guy just came and raped him in the alleyway when he was passed out, would you say to him, "Well, that's not really violence. He just raped you while you were passed out."
Yeah.
Right? Or if you said to him, "Come on, man, that was just 20 minutes of action."
Can you just imagine that? Oh my God.
So if it feels that crazy and insane to you when it's a man who does it to another man, it should feel just as crazy and insane to you if it's a man doing it to a woman, right? So I just want you to broaden your eyes and get a sense of the context here. I get it that it's his dad and he's going to want to defend his son. But for the rest of us, that's not the right way to think about it.
And one final thing that I wanted to bring up, just in case anyone has any doubts that he was treated differently from most other rape suspects or convicts. Brock Allen Turner's mugshot was not released by the Santa Clara County Department. They decided that they were going to keep it. I don't know why they were going to keep it, why they would not release it to journalists. The only image that was released of him after this story broke was what you're about to see, graphic 1B. So they released this picture of him wearing his suit, smiling. It's a great picture, right? Look at it, squeaky clean. Well, he's not bad. Let's go ahead and protect his image. It wasn't until today that Santa Clara County decided to release his mugshot, and that's the first graphic we have.
So the mugshot's not even bad, right? I mean, we've seen much worse mugshots. But in order to go over the top to help him, are they going over the top to help minority defendants in this country, saying, hey, you know what, I know we arrested you on rape charges, but do you have a picture of yourself in a coat and tie that we could use instead to give to the press? Is that the break that a lot of kids in the Bronx or Baltimore are getting, or in rural West Virginia, right? So it's not just that he's white. Look, that is a component of it. If it was, let's say, a black athlete at Stanford, would they have gotten the same things?
Probably. They'd probably get the same treatment because he's making a lot of money for the university, and that's what they care about more than anything else.
There are a lot of different factors. There are athletes, so they're powerful, right? There are those who are richer, and race is a factor. And the place that, I don't know how wealthy or not wealthy he is, but he's going to Stanford. So everything is checked off as on his benefit. White, check. Privilege, check. Going to Stanford, check, right? So how can we help you? Where that is not the treatment the rest of us get.